She told you she wasn't looking for anything serious. Then she texted you at midnight. And here's the thing, most men never realize she wasn't lying either time. What you're about to hear is going to completely reframe how you interpret female behavior, not just in dating, in every dynamic you've ever been confused by. We're going to go deep today. We're going to talk about why mixed signals aren't actually mixed at all, why women who say one thing and do another aren't being manipulative, they're being perfectly logical, just not in the way you've been taught to understand. And at the end, I'm going to show you something that most men never figure out, a pattern hidden underneath every confusing interaction. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Stay with me. Here's the first thing you need to understand before we go any further. Women do not operate from a single conscious decision the way men often expect them to. Men tend to think in declarations. I want this. I don't want that. Linear, direct. One answer. But attraction, real attraction, doesn't work like a decision. It works like a weather system. It shifts. It responds to conditions. It can be sunny in the morning and stormy by evening, and both of those states are completely true. This is not weakness. This is not manipulation. This is how emotional experience actually functions in a high-feeling, socially attuned human being. And the moment you stop expecting women to behave like men, everything starts to make sense. But here's where most men get it wrong. They take the words, they ignore the energy, they hear, "I'm not ready for a relationship," and they shut down completely. They never ask what that sentence actually meant in context. They never consider what was happening in her body when she said it. They never think about what she did in the 3 days after. Words are the surface. Behavior is the truth. Let's go deeper. Picture this. A man, will call him David, meets a woman at a dinner party. The conversation is easy. There's laughter. There's that particular kind of eye contact that lasts just a half second too long. He asks for her number. She gives it. They go on 2 dates. Chemistry is undeniable. Then on the 3rd date, she says it. "I just want you to know I'm not really in a place for something serious right now." David nods. He says he understands. But inside, something deflates. He texts her less. He pulls back. He figures she's told him exactly where the ceiling is, and he decides to respect that ceiling. She notices the shift immediately. And within 2 weeks, she's wondering why he suddenly feels distant, why the energy changed, why something that felt so alive a few weeks ago now feels like he's just going through the motions. What happened? Here's what David missed. That sentence, "I'm not in a place for something serious," was not a final verdict. It was a confession of fear. It was a woman telling him something true about how she felt in that moment, while simultaneously testing whether he was the kind of man who would panic and retreat, or the kind of man who would stay steady and present without pressure. She was telling him about her walls. She was watching to see if he would try to bulldoze them. What most men do wrong is treat that sentence as a closed door. They either back off entirely, which reads as disinterest, or they push back and try to convince her otherwise, which triggers every alarm she has about pressure and control. What to do instead? Receive the information calmly. Don't flinch. Don't negotiate. A simple, confident response sounds something like, "No pressure. I'm not trying to rush anything. I just enjoy being around you." And then you mean it. You genuinely stay in the moment. You don't pull back. You don't press forward. You just continue being the most interesting, present version of yourself. Steady, grounded, unshaken. That steadiness, that is more attractive than anything you could have said, because most men don't have it. Now let's talk about the pattern that drives men absolutely insane. She's warm one day, affectionate, she initiates, she's laughing, touching your arm, holding your gaze a beat longer than necessary. Then 2 days pass, a week. She's short in her texts, she's distracted when you're together, she seems to be somewhere else entirely, and you sit there thinking, what did I do? What changed? Was it something I said? Here's what's actually happening. Attraction for women is not a constant state. It rises and falls based on a complex mix of internal factors, her stress levels, her emotional bandwidth, her own self-image that week, unresolved feelings about past relationships, hormonal cycles, a hard conversation with her mother on Tuesday, none of which have anything to do with you. But here's what's fascinating about this. Her coolness towards you during a low period is actually revealing crucial information not about her feelings, but about your response. Because when a man becomes anxious, needy, or distant, The moment a woman withdraws even slightly, he fails a test he didn't know he was taking. He confirms her subconscious fear that his confidence is conditional, that it only exists when she's giving him attention. Think about what that communicates. It says, I need your warmth to feel secure. Without it, I crumble. And nothing extinguishes attraction faster. What happens next is what most men never notice. The man who stays calm during her cold spell, who continues his life with interest and purpose, who checks in with warmth but doesn't chase, who isn't destabilized by her temporary distance, that man becomes more magnetic, not less, because he just demonstrated something rare. He showed her that his sense of self doesn't depend on her mood. And when she comes back, and she usually does, she comes back with more curiosity than she left with. Her emotional weather is not your emergency. This is the one that creates the most confusion, the most frustration, and honestly, the most bitterness if a man never figures it out. She says she wants someone kind, emotionally available, honest, stable, a good man. And then she seems completely unbothered by the men who are exactly that, while being utterly drawn to someone who seems less available, less predictable, less safe. Every man who has ever watched this happen has had the same thought. What's the point? But here's the thing. She's not lying about what she wants. She genuinely wants those qualities. The mistake is in thinking that kindness and emotional availability on their own generate attraction. They don't. They generate comfort, they generate trust, both of which are essential for a long-term relationship. But comfort and trust, without the presence of tension and polarity, produce something closer to friendship than desire. What she's actually drawn to isn't cruelty or unavailability. What she's drawn to is confidence that doesn't need her approval, presence that feels solid and unshakable, a man who has his own inner world that she hasn't fully mapped yet. The good man who gets overlooked isn't being overlooked because he's good. He's being overlooked because he made himself entirely available before any genuine attraction was built. Because he showed all his cards before she was invested in the hand. Because his niceness had an agenda behind it, even if he didn't realize it, and she felt that agenda even if she couldn't name it. Kindness from a place of strength is compelling. Kindness from a place of fear, the fear of losing her, the fear of being rejected, is invisible at best and suffocating at worst. So what does the rare man do instead? He is genuinely kind. He is emotionally available. And he has a life, a purpose, and a sense of self that exists completely independently of her. He doesn't audition. He doesn't perform goodness hoping for a reward. He simply is who he is, with or without her watching. That combination, warmth and groundedness, is almost disarming to a woman who has spent years navigating men who were either emotionally absent or anxiously attached. She doesn't encounter it very often. And when she does, she doesn't quite have words for why she can't stop thinking about him. Here's what all three of these patterns have in common. Mixed signals are almost never about you. They're about the internal experience of a woman navigating her own fears, desires, past wounds, and present uncertainty in real time. The signals feel mixed because you're trying to read a map that was drawn from the inside. The question she is always consciously or not trying to answer is this: who is this man when I'm not giving him what he wants? Does he stay warm when I pull back? Does he stay grounded when I'm inconsistent? Does he remain himself when I create uncertainty? Most men fail this question not because they're bad people, but because no one ever told them it was being asked. The man who understands this doesn't manipulate. He doesn't game. He simply does the deep internal work of becoming someone whose sense of value is no longer contingent on how any given woman responds to him on any given day. That is the shift, not a technique, not a line. A fundamental change in how you see yourself in relation to the dynamic. And once that shift happens, once you're no longer reading every mixed signal as a verdict on your worth, everything changes. The anxiety dissolves, the neediness disappears, and what's left is a version of you that is quietly more attractive than you've been in years. She wasn't sending you mixed signals. She was showing you exactly who you were in response to uncertainty, and now you know what to do with that. Most men will hear everything I just said and still miss it. They'll nod along, they'll think it makes sense, and then the next time she goes quiet for 3 days, they'll reach for their phone and send the message they know they shouldn't. But a few men, the ones who are actually listening, will sit with this, will let it land somewhere real, and will start making a different choice. Not just with women, with themselves. If you're one of those men, you already know what to do next. Subscribe, because this is just the beginning of what we're going to talk about here.